What's up investors, Sneers here. One of the biggest challenges we have as individual investors is coming up with good ideas for companies to invest in. One method I like to find good ideas is following the masters, the super investors of the world. And lucky for us, in the US, there is a rule that for a certain amount of money managed, you must file a 13F filing, which tells everyone through the SEC what the super investor or the fund is investing in. One of the best sites that track and organize this data for us is Dataroma. Let's visit it. So this site organized the filing from all the master investors, as you can see here, with the date of the filing. So we have Seth Klarman, we have David Abrams, we have Pat Dorsey, and we will visit some of them. And what it also does is organize the data in a convenient way. For example, we can see the top 10 most owned stocks, top 10 stocks by percentage owned, etc., etc. So let's start to explore it to see what's new in the last quarter, the reporting that just been filed. As you can see, they've been filed a lot in the 13th of May, just 2 days ago, and 12th of May. So the majority of filing is just filed in, and it's interesting to see what the masters does. One big caveat to this filing is that it only represents investment in American stocks. A lot of these super investors don't necessarily invest all their money in the American stock, so we need to keep it in mind because it skews a lot of the data. And to drive this point forward, let's begin by looking at the top big bets. We can see here that the big bet in Micron has 99.84% of his portfolio in Micron. We can see that Mohnish Pabrai here is holding almost 100% of his portfolio in Micron. So it makes you think that Mohnish Pabrai is betting really big on Micron, but in this case, we know because Mohnish Pabrai talks about it in podcast and in his YouTube channel actually, that he's investing in other companies as well. So even though he is holding only Micron now, as he sold all of his holdings in Seritage, which I did an analysis on, by the way, he doesn't really bet that big on Micron. His bet in Micron is huge, don't get me wrong, but a lot of his investment is also in other parts of the world. He's invested heavily in India. He talks about a great investment he had in Turkey. So take that with a grain of salt, even though Micron as a company looks really good because a lot of master investors are investing in it, Li Lu and Spier, but most of the master investors except one didn't add to this investment in the last quarter. It means that probably there are other opportunities awaiting for them right now, even though we can see from the price, it's the lowest it's been in a year. So maybe if you analyze Micron and you decide that it's a good opportunity, it's a good buying time. Even though if we can see here for the 5 years, it still had this big jump in 2020, and it's still here in the higher prices, so tread cautiously. The next stock in the big bets that I want to look at is IAC, the Interactive Corp. Interactive Corp is a corporation that holds a lot of brands, internet brands. For example, it holds Ask, if you remember them, or more relevant for us investors, Investopedia is held by IAC. Now, there's a huge holding by Shawspring, which he added, the both holders added, and Shawspring, that's not a small investor. They hold $810 million in investment, and from that, almost 500 million is invested in IAC. So they bet really big on IAC, and they added recently a lot of shares. So that may look like a good idea because if we look at the price, it's dropped significantly in the last year and it's back to where it was in the end of 2020. And we can see that Shawspring has been adding into their holding throughout 2021 and a significant additions every time. So it means that the analysts in Shawspring, they think the price was really good, as evident by their adding when it was up here. So when it's down here and they added more, it means that their thesis hasn't changed. It means that there might be something here worth exploring. So that's the first idea. I will go to explore that later. Next, I want to take a look on some of my favorite investors. Let's begin with Seth Klarman. If you are unfamiliar with Seth Klarman, he's a really great value investors. He's the author of the book Margin of Safety, which is considered one of the best books on value investing in the world. Let's look at his action. What first caught my eye is this buy, let's get it bigger, on Corvo. So let's take a look at Corvo. Seth Klarman is the biggest holder among the master investors, and we can see that, again, this is a stock that suffered a big loss in the past year. And even if we look at the 5 years context, so we can see that it risen up a lot in 2020 and then got down almost to the levels of the merge, not the merge 20, but just before it. So it's in a great price. And if we look at the buys, just to see, the question that I ask myself is whether Seth Klarman thought that the rise in the price was excessive and he stopped buying, or did he keep adding? So it means that his analysis came out with the thought that the price is still a good price when it was so up. So it says that the price go down is even better. And we can see here that Seth Klarman bought in Q4 and he bought in Q2. It means that he thought that the price is good, and he still thinks the price is good. He still thinks the opportunity is good, so he is adding more. So that, to me, says that there is something interesting here, maybe something worth duplicating and looking into. And for Corvo specifically, I took a quick look at the financial to see what the company is doing and how they manage, and what I saw is really good. So we can see here on Ticker, this is the tool I use to look at the financials of stocks. So we can see that the revenue isn't really growing through the years. It's growing, but that's not a growth company by all means. But what is interesting about this company is that they are getting their margin a lot better every year. So we can see here, the operating margin here. You can see the steady rise to a great operating margins. And they came from a losing company. They've been a losing company to a very profitable company. Now, the genius of Seth Klarman is that he invested first time here in 2017. We can see it here. Let's go to the buys. And in 2017, Seth Klarman bought in. You can see he initiated his position. So his genius is understanding when they were still losing money, that they are about to expand their margins so fast that they will be so profitable. So it's worth taking a look, in my opinion, because this story here is good. They are a profitable company. They don't have a lot of debt. So that's another idea we got from Seth Klarman. The next investor I want to look at is Pat Dorsey. Pat Dorsey is an investor that is known to be more tech-leaning investor, and it's interesting to me since we had this huge drawdown in tech stocks in the past year, especially since 2022 began, and it's interesting to see what Pat Dorsey does. So let's take a look. As you can see here, Pat Dorsey is holding almost only tech stocks. So all these stocks have been big losers, and you can see here the reported price since he bought the reported price. He has a huge losses, 20%, 30%. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because that's not really how it's measured within the investment firm. We only see the long position. We don't see how he plays this position, how for example, how did he got into the position? He could have used options to get into these positions and then earn some money on these options that offset some of the losses. It's not really what he's lost on these positions, and the prices are the prices of the reporting, so we don't know at what exact price he bought in, but in general it's not a good look, at least for now. And it's interesting to see that Pat Dorsey, as you can see, is doubling down everywhere. He's adding a lot, and most significantly, he's adding to free position. Facebook, he added 30%. That's a huge movement. And he added at the price of 222, which right now Facebook is even lower, so it might be worth a look. You can see here the massive drawdown. So maybe Facebook is a good company to look at. He's also added a lot to PayPal, and PayPal is also massively down in the past year, as you can see here, maybe that's a good opportunity too. PayPal is actually even lower than it was in 2020, all the way back to the price of 2019. So maybe PayPal is an opportunity, at least in the mind of Pat Dorsey. And as we can see here, let's get bigger, we can see here that a lot of other portfolio managers have the same thought. So Pat Dorsey added a lot, but also this investor added a lot, and it's almost 10% of his portfolio. So he's betting big too. So maybe there's something to consider here. The last investor I want to look at, and to end it with a high note, an investor I like a lot is Guy Spier. You can see here that Guy Spier did absolutely nothing, at least in his American holdings. He's just holding everything, even stocks like Seritage that his friend Mohnish Pabrai sold out. Guy Spier is still holding and is not moving anywhere. He's bought it a few Qs ago at the price of $12. It's a lot down now. It's $8, so he's 30% down. But Guy Spier is an investor with a really long-term view, and he's not really thinking about this small movement, especially in a stock like Seritage, that is a very small company. So the movement in the stock, the volatility is naturally very high. So he's just holding it and he's waiting. And that's a rare ability these days. And that's what makes a lot of great investments. Buy for the long term, don't get scared by the movement, and just keep moving. We see it with Guy Spier, doesn't have any movement in his portfolio in the last quarter, at least in the American stocks. And we can see it with Pat Dorsey, that added a lot to his what's called the losing stocks of the tech companies, where he actually, I believe, he's believing in these stocks. So the story didn't change. Not only that it didn't sold, he adds more. So that's it for today, guys. I hope this video was helpful. And if you want to visit Dataroma to see the things for yourself, I left a link in the description below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.